Saturn's rings are dying, not in billions of years, not eventually. Right now, at a rate that will erase them completely within 100 million years. In cosmic terms, that is almost nothing. The dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago. The rings will be gone sooner than that. But here's the part that changes everything. We just found out they're being destroyed from the inside by one of Saturn's own moons. A moon so small you could fit it inside a city. And the damage it's doing, confirmed by both Cassini and James Webb, is irreversible. In this video, you're going to find out exactly how the most beautiful structure in the solar system is being taken apart, piece by piece, in real time, and why it matters that we're alive to see it at all. Here's the fact that reframes everything you've ever seen about Saturn. The rings are draining into the planet right now at roughly 10,000 kilograms per second. That's the mass of a small elephant vanishing into Saturn every single second. It has been happening continuously, and we measured it directly. Cassini caught it in 2017 in its final orbits, threading between Saturn and the rings before it burned up in the atmosphere. The team published it in Science. At this rate, the entire ring system disappears in 100 million years or less. But the drain rate isn't even the strangest part. Because when Cassini measured how old the rings actually are, the number broke the model everyone had believed for a century. For 400 years we assumed Saturn's rings were as old as Saturn itself, 4.5 billion years. Ancient, permanent. They're not. Cassini's gravity measurements published in 2019 showed the rings are somewhere between 10 and 400 million years old. Let that land. The rings did not exist when the first dinosaurs walked the Earth. They formed afterward. Something created them long after the solar system was finished, which means two things. First, we got impossibly lucky. The rings exist only in this narrow window of cosmic time, a few 100 million years earlier or later, and Saturn is just another featureless gas giant. Second, something made them. And the answer to what made them is the single most disturbing thing Cassini ever found. If you're fascinated by discoveries like this, subscribe. Because the next part of this story is where things get truly strange. The thing that made Saturn's rings starts with a moon that shouldn't still exist. Inside Saturn's rings there is a gap, a dark, clean band carved through the A-ring, Saturn's outermost bright ring, about 42 kilometers wide. It's called the Keeler Gap, and sitting directly inside it is a moon called Daphnis. Daphnis is not impressive to look at. It's roughly 8 kilometers across, about the size of Manhattan, irregular in shape. Covered in ring material it's accumulated over millions of years. Completely unremarkable except for one thing. It is tearing the rings apart. As Daphnis orbits inside the Keeler Gap, its gravity pulls on the ring material on both sides of it. Material closer to Saturn orbits slightly faster. Material further out orbits slightly slower. Every time Daphnis passes a clump of ring particles, its gravity tugs them into waves, tight, regular, spiraling ripples that reach up to 500 meters above the plane of the rings. Cassini photographed those waves in stunning detail in 2017. They look like the surface of water after you drag your finger through it. Except the water is billions of ice particles, each one following the gravity of a moon the size of a city. The waves don't just look beautiful, they do real damage. Every time those ripples form, ring particles collide with each other at slightly different velocities. Those collisions kick material out of the ring plane. Some of it falls inward towards Saturn, joining the ring rain that Cassini measured. Some of it gets flung outward and is lost entirely. Daphnis has been doing this for millions of years, but Daphnis is just the executioner. The original cause, why the rings exist at all and why they're structured the way they are, that goes much deeper. And in 2022, a team of researchers published a paper in the astrophysical journal Letters that answered the question nobody could fully answer before. What they found was not a collision, not a comet. It was a ghost, a moon that no longer exists, but whose death created everything you see when you look at Saturn tonight. Quick question before we get there. If Saturn's rings are only 100 million years old, that means other gas giants might have had ring systems that already came and went. Which planet do you think once had rings we never got to see? Drop it in the comments. Here is where the science goes from interesting to genuinely unsettling. Because the Chrysalis hypothesis doesn't just explain the rings, it explains something about Saturn's tilt that scientists couldn't account for. And the two answers turned out to be the same answer. In September 2022, Jack Wisdom at MIT and his team published a study in Science proposing the Chrysalis hypothesis. Their model: Saturn once had a large moon, roughly the size of Iapetus, one of its current moons, orbiting in a stable path. Around 160 million years ago, gravitational interactions with Saturn's other moons destabilized that orbit. The doomed moon, named Chrysalis by the team, swung too close to Saturn. Tidal forces tore it apart. Most of it fell into Saturn. A portion of it, the icy outer layers, was flung into a disk around the planet. That debris became the rings. This single event explains three things at once: why the rings are so young, why they're made almost entirely of water ice, and why Saturn's axis is tilted at 26.7 degrees, a tilt that models had never been able to account for without invoking a moon that no longer exists. The murder weapon and the victim are both gone. The rings are the evidence left behind. When James Webb turned towards Saturn in 2023, it characterized the rings' chemistry at a precision Cassini never had. The result? The rings are more than 95% pure water ice, almost no contamination. That purity is itself proof of youth. Ancient rings would be filthy with silicates and organics from billions of years of micrometeorite impacts. Webb's data also matched Cassini's drain rate exactly. Every new observation tightens the timeline. None extend it. Best case, the rings have 200 million years. Worst case, under 100 million. Either way, they're not permanent. They're a brief event, and we're inside it. But here's the question almost nobody asks. The one that turns this from a story about Saturn into a story about every planet you've ever seen. If Saturn's rings are this young and this temporary, then something uncomfortable has to be true about every giant planet. The same orbital mechanics that destroyed Chrysalis are running everywhere right now. Neptune is slowly pulling Triton inward, and in a few billion years, Triton gets torn apart, giving Neptune rings more spectacular than Saturn's, which means ring systems aren't rare accidents. They're a phase, temporary structures that form, drain, and vanish, leaving no trace they ever existed. Saturn's rings are the only example we'll ever get to study, and they're already disappearing. We're not looking at a permanent wonder of the solar system. We're looking at the last few frames of one. In 2017, after 13 years at Saturn, Cassini flew itself into the planet, gone in under a minute. NASA destroyed it on purpose. It couldn't risk crashing into Enceladus or Titan and contaminating a world that might hold life. So, the spacecraft that found the best signs of life in the outer solar system was killed to protect the life it might have found. The rings will be gone in 100 million years. The moon that made them died 160 million years ago. And we happen to be here, alive, looking for the one brief moment when all of it was still visible. That's either the luckiest coincidence in the history of astronomy, or it's exactly what you miss if you stop looking up. Subscribe for the next break in this story, and go watch the Triton video next, the ocean moon. NASA refused to visit before the window closes in 2030. It's up now.